Just before the Battle of Boydton Plank Road, the 61st Regiment Massachusetts Volunteers was the last Massachusetts infantry regiment to be sent to the front. Recruiting begun in August 1864, the rendezvous being at Gallup's Island, Boston Harbor. By the last of September the first 5 companies had been mustered in, and on October 7 they left the state under command of Lieutenant Colonel Charles F. Walcott, formerly a captain in the 21st Regiment, who had been severely wounded at Antietam. 5 days later this battalion reached City Point, Virginia, after a stormy passage, and was there assigned to the Engineer Brigade commanded by General Bentham. As a part of this brigade, the 61st was stationed in the defenses of City Point most of the winter. James C. G. Dodge, newly commissioned a major on November 9, 1864, had arrived at the 61st Regiment on November 19, 1864. Twice the regiment was sent to the front, once in the middle of December, when for a short time it was employed on the lines just at the right of Fort Sedgwick, and again early in February, when it participated in the movement to Hatcher's Run. No loss was incurred in these activities. The remaining 5 companies were forwarded to City Point, as their organization was completed, the last, Companies I and K, not arriving until the middle of March 1865. Soon after their arrival the 61st was transferred from the Engineer Brigade to Collis Independent Brigade, and on the 2nd of April was moved up to the front lines near Fort Sedgwick. About 2 p.m. the regiment was ordered to advance and capture a line of breastworks on the left of the Jerusalem Plank Road, a part of the outer works of Fort Mahorn. This line was taken in a spirited charge and stubbornly held, the Confederate fire being kept up until midnight. About 2:30 a.m. on the 3rd, a reconnaissance made by Lieutenant Henry W. Howard and 25 skirmishers revealed the fact that the enemy had abandoned the works in that vicinity. About daybreak the regiment entered the city of Petersburg. In this assault on April 2nd the regiment lost 2nd Lieutenant Thomas B. Hart and 4 men, killed, and 30 wounded, 2 of these mortally. For gallant and meritorious service in this action 9 officers were recommended for promotion by Brevet, Colonel Walcott, Lieutenant Colonel Stone, Major Dodge, 1st Lieutenants Vaughn, Gregg, Howard, Jones, and Morial, and 2nd Lieutenant Palmer. In the book entitled, The War of the Rebellion, a compilation of the official records of the Union and Confederate armies, on page 1093, paragraph 3, a letter entitled, Addenda, Headquarters Independent Brigade, dated April 21, 1865 to Colonel Ruggles, Assistant Adjutant General, Army of the Potomac, from Charles Collis, Brevet Brigadier General, commanding. It was written. Major James G. C. Dodge, 61st Massachusetts Volunteers, to be a lieutenant colonel by brevet for gallant and meritorious services, in leading his regiment on the 21st instant against the enemy's works, the regiment being left in front. This officer has been twice wounded in action and, although a cripple, has insisted upon remaining in the service, notwithstanding advice to the contrary from his physicians. His character upon the occasion referred to was of the most conspicuous character. The conduct of the 3 officers above mentioned came under my immediate observation and I can safely say had a great influence upon our success. The 61st on entering Petersburg applied itself to the work of extinguishing the fire, which was consuming Campbell's Bridge over the Appomattox, but before noon was ordered to return to its station at City Point. About the 12th of April the regiment was in temporary charge of several thousand prisoners, who had been captured with General Ewell at Sailor's Creek on the 6th. On the 16th the 61st was sent to Burkeville on the South Side Railroad, arriving on the 20th. Here the Independent Brigade was broken up, the 61st Regiment being assigned to the 1st Brigade, 2nd Division, 6th Corps. On May 1 the regiment began its march to Washington, arriving May 12 and going into camp near Fort Barnard. On the 23rd it took part in the Grand Review of the Army of the Potomac in Washington City. Companies A, B, C, D, and E, which had been the first to enter the service, were mustered out June 4, and on the following day started for home. Arriving at Reedville, Massachusetts, June 8, on the 17th the men were paid off and discharged. James C. G. Dodge was in this first group to be mustered out, and so ended his illustrious military career. The other 5 companies were retained in the vicinity of the city of Washington until July 16, when they too were mustered out, and 4 days later left for Massachusetts, arriving at Reedville, July 22. Here on the first day of August they too were paid off and discharged. Major James C. G. Dodge's letter of acceptance of his promotion to Brevet Lieutenant Colonel written to the Commission Branch of the Adjutant General's Office, it reads as follows. Boston, July 11, 1865. Sir, I have the honor to acknowledge the receipt of my appointment by the President to the rank of Brevet Lieutenant Colonel, which I accept with many thanks. Enclosed with this please find the prescribed oath. I have the honor to be, Sir, very respectfully James G. C. Dodge, late Major of 61st Massachusetts Volunteers, Honorable Edwin M. Stanton, Secretary of War. James adds the following at the bottom of his letter: 25 years of age, born in Boston, and considers myself a resident of the state of Massachusetts. My address is care of Dodge, Baldwin and Company, 39 Franklin Street, Boston, Massachusetts. An explanation of the military meaning of the word brevet. A brevet was a warrant authorizing a commissioned officer to hold a higher rank temporarily, but usually without receiving the pay of that higher rank except when actually serving in that role. An officer so promoted may be referred to as being breveted. It was awarded for services, which were described as meritorious services or gallant and meritorious services. After his promotion, he was then a breveted lieutenant colonel. The promotion would be noted in the officer's title, for example, Brevet Lieutenant Colonel James G. C. Dodge. Enclosed with his letter of acceptance was his signed oath. What is so interesting about these documents is in the last sentence in his acceptance letter, where he gives his address as Dodge, Baldwin and Company. So we can see that James was associated with a business, whose last names are Dodge and Baldwin, and an address at 39 Franklin Street in Boston. So James picks up his civilian career on July 11, 1865 in Boston, working at a company which bears his name. Was he the Dodge responsible for its conception? See the continuation story of James in Chapter 10.